Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about remote work and careers. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, is it true that doing remote work will hurt my career as a programmer? And the short answer is a little bit. Maybe more than you think, but definitely to a point. So let me explain. Now, I've touched on remote work before, and the thing that I think that you should be aware of with remote work is that although you have the luxury and the benefit and so forth of being able to pretty much work from wherever you want, you still lack one fundamental thing, maybe. It's very common that you lack this thing, but you may also be able to solve it. And the thing that you can lack is the daily interactions with your coworker. You run the risk of being very isolated. Now, isolation is the number one killer to your career, especially when you're starting out as a junior. You very much depend on, in order to enhance your own skills, a collaborative environment where people who have more experience than you can share their ideas and give you feedback on the work that you do. Now, with that said, you can also have a very collaborative environment when you do remote work. I have just recently actually met a fellow that came to Gothenburg to visit me, who explained that they actually have at his company the concept of mob programming, which is a different topic, but in essence it is that you sit and you code together as a group, and they manage to do that through video conferences and like remote work. And that company seems to understand, at least from my perspective, how important it is to maintain these social connections, because they are encouraging mob programming as much as possible. Now, I don't believe that that's just because you need to maintain some type of social relationship between teams that work in different time zones and different countries, but it is one of those benefits. But if you work in isolation, on the other hand, if you do remote work without actually having any type of collaboration going on with your coworkers, odds are that you will, one part, not actually develop your technical skills as fast as you would have if you had someone to ask for help, or if you had someone to give you feedback on the work that you do. But the second part is a little bit more subtle, and that is that you will not get the opportunity to expand yourself up from just being a coder, if that makes sense. You see, when you're in an office space and you're pretty much working with coworkers and you're getting to know people, odds are that if you want to maybe start thinking about progressing to a tech lead or some type of manager, administrator type of role, you will have that option in an office environment. Basically what I'm saying is that you get the opportunity to help out with administrative tasks. You can also see how your different managers, they actually behave and how they work and so forth. Now, of course, not every manager you have might be an excellent example of how to be a manager, but you will at least see what sort of things that they prioritize and how they work and how they set up meetings, and like all these tiny little details that you get from being in a closed environment, or an environment where you get exposure to this. Now, you will not get that as a freelancer or as a remote worker. So, well, it's less likely in any case. So what's likely to happen here is that you will not actually adopt the same sort of skills or the same understanding of how it is to manage a team and how to deal with stakeholders or things like that. It's highly likely that you will be focused on your coding, exclusively your coding, and you're going to have to do your own personal development, and that is something that definitely will affect your long-term career. Short-term, not so much. I'm not saying that you shouldn't do remote work. I'm saying that you should really think about what your long-term goals are, because if you want to someday be a tech lead or a team lead or a CTO or some type of character like that, you should really remember that it is vital for you to get practice in an environment where you can actually do that sort of work. And remote work will very likely not give you that sort of practice. CTOs and tech leads and so forth are usually very social creatures that need to manage groups. And if you're not working in an environment where it is fairly, let's say that the environment is a very good image of the sort of environment you're very likely to work in as a CTO or a tech lead at some point, well, then you're not actually preparing for that sort of role, or you're not actually getting exposure to what you need to know and all these subtle little social differences that you might have between being remote and being on premises. So what I want you to take away from this is that I do believe that doing remote work can hurt your career long term, not because it's not a good way of working, but rather because it is less social. It can be, at least. It doesn't have to be, but it is often the case that you might get very isolated, and that means that if you're isolated, you don't get exposure to the same daily issues and the same daily challenges that someone who works within a real company and in an office space actually does get exposure to. And that is the sort of thing that you definitely want if you want to progress to becoming a manager or some type of administrator, because these people need to have fairly strong social skills and know the jargon and know the industry very well, and of course know the company and how to deal with stakeholders. All of this sort of stuff you get from working on premises, or you get, it's likelier at least that you get exposure to this sort of stuff by working with other people and being very closely working with other people. But if you work as a remote developer, odds are that you get a lot less of these social interactions that are so important if you want to become a manager. Have a great day.